The divine Pymander of Hermes Trismegistus, the Kundalini dragon, the son of Saturn, predating Moses. These scriptures that I'm about to share with you, or knowledge of antiquity, I feel would be a better way to reference it, could be first place for antiquity. From all of the books in the world being written long before Moses and anything in the Bible. The information presented will confirm this hypothesis. The original, as far as we know it to be, was in Arabic, then several translations thereafter, Greek, Latin, French, Dutch. Then Dr. Everard translated it into English, and it was published in 1650 in London. Now, concerning these texts, the main focus is going to be four things considered to correlate how old these texts actually are: his name, the learning, the country, and the time. Because he was named Ter Maximus, many people believe that name was because he was a chief philosopher. Then he became the chief in the priesthood, then went to the chief of the government or king. Now, according to his most learned followers, he was called Ter Maximus for having perfect and exact knowledge of all things contained in the world. He divided these things into three kingdoms: the mineral, vegetable, and animal kingdoms. He also had the knowledge of the quintessence of the entire universe, which is also divided into these three parts, also called the great elixir of the philosophers, which is the receptacle of the celestial and terrestrial virtues. Ripley, Bacon, Norton have also found the description of this great treasure engraved upon a Smaragdine table, probably said that wrong, in the valley of Ebron after the flood. So, because it is received amongst the ancients that Thoth or Hermes Trismegistus was the first that invented the art of communicating knowledge to the world by writing or engraving, that is going to add to the probability that these texts were long before Moses or anything that you would read in the Bible. Now, with that said, Moses in the Bible talks about how from an early childhood he became skilled in Egyptian learning, which could not well have been without the help of literature invented by Hermes Trismegistus, which would also explain how these texts, the author, predates. Secondly, this is where it gets really interesting. He is said by himself to be the son of Saturn, and by others to be the scribe of Saturn. I always thought it was Mercury. Now, Saturn, according to historians, lived in the time of Sarug, which is when Abraham's great-grandfather was alive. In this book, though so very old, is contained more true knowledge of God and nature than in all the books in this world, besides, except only, sacred writ. And they that shall judiciously read it and rightly understand it may well be excused from reading many books. So there you go. If you want to avoid doing a whole bunch of reading, just read these books according to the author. That's pretty cool. I always like to do the least amount possible and obtain the most results, the most effective, maximum results. The authors of which, with many books, not this one, because this is one author, the authors of which pretend so much to the knowledge of the Creator and creation, if God ever appeared in any man, he appeared in him as it appears by this book. That's also fascinating. that a man who had not the benefit of his ancestors' knowledge, being, as I said before, the first inventor of the art of communicating knowledge to posterity by writing, should be so high a divine and so deep a philosopher seems to be a thing more of God than of man, which I absolutely agree. And therefore it was the opinion of some that he came from heaven, not born upon earth. There is contained in this book that true philosophy, without which it is impossible ever to attain to the height and exactness of piety and religion. According to this philosophy, I call him a philosopher that shall learn and study the things that are, and how they are ordered and governed, and by whom, and for what cause, or to what end. And he that doeth so will acknowledge thanks to and admire the omnipotent Creator, preserver and director of all these things. And he that shall be thus truly thankful may truly be called pious and religious, and he that is religious shall more and more know where and what the truth is. And learning that, he shall yet be more and more religious. The divine Pymander of Hermes Mercurius Trismegistus, the glory and splendor of philosophy. Let me see here. Let me scroll down on this a little bit for you. Yeah, right here. The glory and splendor of philosophy is an endeavoring to understand the chief good as the fountain of all good. Now, how can we come near to or find out the fountain? But by making use of the streams as a conduct to it. The operations of nature are streams running from the fountain of good, which is God. I am not of the ignorant and foolish opinion of those that say the greatest philosophers are the greatest atheists, as if to know the works of God, and to understand his goings forth in the way of nature must necessitate a man to deny God. The Job 38 scripture disapproves of this as a sottish tenet, and experience contradicts it. For behold, here is the greatest philosopher, and therefore the greatest divine. Now, the divine Pymander of Hermes Trismegistus, there are 17 books in this canon. Now, I'm going to share with you his first book today, which I find extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary, extremely deep, multitudes of meanings. So let me scroll down now and get mine up here. Okay. O my son, I write this first book both for humanity's sake and for piety towards God. For there can be no religion more true or just than to know the things that are, and to acknowledge thanks for all things to him that made them, which thing I shall not cease continually to do. What then should a man do? O Father, to lead his life well, seeing there is nothing here true? Be pious and religious, O my son, for he that doeth so is the best and highest philosopher. And without philosophy, it is impossible ever to attain the height and exactness of piety or religion. But he that shall learn and study the things that are and how they are ordered and governed, and by whom and for what cause or to what end, will acknowledge thanks to the workman as to a good father, an excellent nurse, and a faithful steward. And he that gives thanks shall be pious and religious, and he that is religious shall know both where the truth is and what it is, and learning that, he will be yet more and more religious. For never, O son, shall or can the soul, which while it is in the body, lightens and lifts up itself to know and comprehend that which is good and true, slide back to the contrary. For it is infinitely enamored thereof, and forgetteth all evils, and when it hath learned and known its father and progenitor, it can no more apostolize or depart from that good. I think that's a very powerful statement right there. Once you're on, you're on. You're good to go. Enjoy the ride. You are protected. You are safe. I love that. So even when you get to that point where you're thinking, I don't know, am I going to make it? Where am I? What path? There's somebody watching out for you. There's something out there keeping you where you need to be. And even if you're off track, they'll get you back on. Just keep the faith. Now, that's one thing that I love about faith. Not lapse of reasoning, not lapse of understanding or lack of knowledge, but actual energy of faith, of belief. Belief is a very powerful thing. The imagination combined with belief and faith. Not imagining like the tooth fairy, but your imagination can create life, literally. So maybe you can create the tooth fairy. I don't know. So, but would you really want to? I mean, we created the Marshmallow Man that helped push off Irma, but still many people were devastated from that hurricane. So let's get back to this. I apologize for digressing. And let this, O son, be the end of religion and piety, whereunto, when thou art once arrived, thou shalt both live well and die blessedly, while thy soul is not ignorant whether it must return and fly back again. For this only, O son, is the way to the truth, which our progenitors traveled in, and by which making their journey, they at length attained to be good. It is a venerable way and plain, but hard and difficult for the soul to go in, and that is in the body. Let me make sure that, okay, let me scroll up here a little bit for you. Okay, so we're on 10. Number 10. But the victory of both is not like. For the one hasteth to that which is good, but the other is a neighbor to the things that are evil. And that which is good desireth to be set at liberty, but the things that are evil love bondage and slavery. And if the two parts be overcome, they become quiet and are content to accept of it as their ruler. But if the one be overcome of the two, it is by them led and carried to be punished by its being and continuance here. This is, O son, the guide and the way that leads thither. For thou must first forsake the body before thy end, and get the victory in the contention and strifeful life, and when thou hast overcome, return. Number 13. But now, O my son, I will be heads run through the things that are understand thou, which I say, and remember what thou hearest. All things that are moved, only that which is not is unmovable. Every body is changeable. Not every body is dissolvable. Some bodies are dissolvable. Every living thing is not mortal. Not every living thing is immortal. That which may be dissolved is also corruptible. That which abides always is unchangeable. That which is unchangeable is eternal. That which is always made is always corrupted. That which is made but once is never corrupted, neither becomes any other thing. First, God. Secondly, the world. Thirdly, man. The world for man, man for God. It's pretty cool. Let's see if we're on the... Okay, let me scroll up here for you. Here we go. Of the soul, that part which is sensible is mortal, but that which is reasonable is immortal. Every essence is immortal. Every essence is unchangeable. Everything that is double. None of the things that are stand still. Not all things are moved by a soul, but everything that is moved by a soul. Huh? Everything that suffers is sensible. Everything that is sensible suffereth. Everything that is sad rejoiceth also, and is a mortal living creature. Not everything that joyeth is also sad, but is an eternal living thing. Not every body is sick. Every body that is sick is dissolvable. The mind is God. That's my favorite right there. The mind is God. No, it doesn't say is God. It says in God. Oops. The mind in God, still cool. Reasoning or disputing or discoursing in man. Reason in the mind is void of suffering. No thing in a body true. All that is incorporeal is void of line. Everything that is made is corruptible. Nothing good upon earth, nothing evil in heaven. God is good, man is evil. Hey, good is voluntary or of its own accord. Evil is involuntary or against its will. The gods choose good things as good things. Time is a divine thing. Law is humane. Malice is the nourishment of the world. Time is the corruption of man. Whatsoever is in heaven is unalterable. All upon earth is alterable. Nothing in heaven is servanted. Nothing upon earth free. Nothing unknown in heaven. Nothing known upon earth. The things upon earth communicate not with those in heaven. All things in heaven are unblameable. All things upon earth are subject to reprehension. That which is immortal is not mortal. That which is mortal is not immortal. That which is sown is not always begotten, but that which is begotten always is sown. I mean, isn't this stuff crazy? It's deep, right? Multiple meanings. I said earlier, dualistic meanings. I think that maybe dualistic sides, but a lot more than just two meanings. Variables within variables, fractals within fractals. Absolutely incredible. I mean, this information is timeless. It's absolutely timeless. So let's go to number 61 here. Number 61. Of a dissolvable body, there are two times, one from sowing to generation, one from generation to death. Of an everlasting body, the time is only from the generation. Dissolvable bodies are increased and diminished. Dissolvable matter is altered into contraries, to wit, corruption and generation, but eternal matter into itself and its like. The generation of man is corruption. The corruption of man is the beginning of generation. That which offsprings or begetteth another is itself an offspring or begotten by another. Of things that are, some are in bodies, some in their ideas. Whatsoever things belong to operation or working are in a body. That which is immortal partakes not of that which is mortal. That which is mortal cometh not into a body immortal, but that which is immortal cometh into that which is mortal. Operations or workings are not carried upward, but descended downwards. Things upon earth do nothing advantage those in heaven, but all things in heaven do profit and advantage the things upon earth. Heaven is capable and a fit receptacle of everlasting bodies. The earth of corruptible bodies, the earth is brutish, the heaven is reasonable or rational. Those things that are in heaven are subjected or placed under it, but the things on earth are placed upon it. Heaven is the first element. Providence is divine order. Necessity is the minister or servant of providence. Fortune is the carriage or effect of that which is without order, the idol of operation, a lying fantasy or opinion. What is God? The immutable or unalterable good. What is man? An unchangeable evil. If thou perfectly remember these heads, thou canst not forget those things which in more words I have largely expounded unto thee. For these are the contents of abridgment of them. Avoid all conversation with the multitude or common people. For I would not have thee subject to envy, much less to be ridiculous unto the many. So let's talk about that for a minute. I hear from so many people that listen to Leak Project, they have a tough time having conversations with others because they just don't relate. You know, the people they're talking to want to talk about the latest hip-hop, the latest sports game, the mainstream media propaganda as being legit. You bring alternative sources or information of antiquity, or what are we doing here? Where are we going? What's our purpose? What do you think about the real shadows that control the world today in many aspects? They don't want to talk about it. And I feel that that's what is being discussed right here. I like that. Does that mean if somebody asks you a question, not to give them an answer? No. If somebody's asking you a question, genuinely, they're seeking knowledge, that's a good thing. That's not what this is saying, in my opinion. This is saying avoid those out there that suck your energy. Literally, I call them energy suckers. I used to be in professions where people would come in and they would literally suck your energy if you let them. Like, you would talk to them for an hour, a couple hours, a few hours sometimes, and by the time they left, even though it wasn't physically draining, you're mentally were just like, ugh. You had to take a shower to get all the puke off of you, you know, all the verbal vomit, just, ugh, thinking about it, ugh. They're energy suckers. They're all over the place. Use your energy wisely. Use your time wisely. Each word that you say, each letter that you write down, everything that you think, use it wisely. Do it wisely. One thing that I find fascinating is when I've spoken to Dick Algier, one of the best remote viewers in the world, when they remote viewed the Phoenix Lights, they saw these beings inside of these huge craft that were literally so efficient, and everything that they did had reasoning. Every move was just as efficient as it could be. If we were like that, first of all, I feel would be a lot more robotic, so it wouldn't be nearly as cool and we wouldn't be nearly as, I don't know, unique. But at the same time, if you are abstract and whatever it is you're doing, do it to its maximum effect. Do what you are good at best. You know, use your time wisely. I feel is just is the best way to put that together in what he's referencing right now. For the like always takes to itself. See if we're on the, yeah, okay. No, we're way back here. We need to, there we go. For the like always takes to itself that which is like, but the unlike never agrees with the unlike. Such discourses as these have very few auditors, and peradventure very few will have, but they have something peculiar unto themselves. They do rather sharpen, and what evil men to their maliciousness, therefore it behoveth to avoid these, or to avoid the multitude, and take heed of them, as not understanding the virtue and power of the things that are said. How does thou mean, O Father? How dost thou mean, O Father? I'm not good at this old English. I'm not even good at regular English. I apologize. Thus, O Son, the whole nature and composition of those living things called men is very prone to maliciousness, and is very familiar, and as it were nourished with it, and therefore is delighted with it. Now this white, a creature, if it shall come to learn or know that the world was once made, and all things are done according to providence and necessity, destiny or fate bearing rule over all, will he not be much worse than himself, despising the whole because it was made? That's an interesting question right there. And if he may lay the case or the cause of evil upon fate or destiny, he will never abstain from any evil work. It's also very interesting. Wherefore we must look warily to such kind of people, that being in ignorance, they may be less evil for fear of that which is hidden and kept secret. So for those of you that think ignorance is bliss, there you go. Less fear. So that's it. Now we're at the second book called Pymander, the Divine Pymander of Hermes Mercurius Trismegistus. What are your thoughts on all of the, people are evil? It doesn't say people are evil, it says men are evil. So let's talk about that for a minute, because I really had to search deep in my heart and soul what that means, because I am so tired of reading all these scriptures and texts talking about how evil men are and how we're the densest form and we were put in this prison body because we were tricked and evil, 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 evil. You hear all this evil, 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 evil. So I don't think that I'm evil. I sure hope I'm not evil. Are you evil? Most of my family, I feel, are genuinely as kind as it gets. They'd give you the shirts off their back. They'd give you the shoes off their feet. If they had $5 and you needed it more than they did, they'd give it to you. I mean, really, really good people. I've talked to you about my grandparents, my parents, my relatives, my family. Very, very, very kind people. My father-in-law is amazing. My mother-in-law is amazing. My wife's amazing. My family's amazing. And I remember growing up as a kid thinking how lucky I was to have such amazing family and such amazing parents. So when you get into some of these texts that talk about how people are evil, it doesn't really say people are evil, it says men are evil, right? So what does that mean? Men. Well, maybe that label is more of a straw man, because are you a man or a woman? Well, I mean, physically, yeah. I mean, you've got, certain makeups that make you a Wang Chung, a man or a woman, right? Or some people don't identify with that. I get it. It's really hot in my garage, folks. So if you're wondering why I'm sweating, it's like 100 degrees in here, and even with the fan. So let me wipe the sweat off my face. So I think that people are genuinely good. They have good intentions, good heart, good kind souls. But the reference of man being evil, man is a word. It is a straw man. Is that what you are? Or are you something more than that? Are you a higher level of consciousness? Do you have the divine spark of light that God Almighty, the supreme being and creator and creation, gave you as a gift, as a present, like right now we're in the present? So maybe man is evil. Maybe certain people are born with evil instincts and negative instincts. I get that. Absolutely. It's how do you overcome that? And do you label yourself as just a man or a woman? Or are you a human? I mean, what are you? I think we're more than that. I mean, that's our physical makeup right now in our software package that we have, right? This is our software programming that we're in, software and hardware combined to make what we're experiencing right now in a very fluid electric fashion, which is amazing. But instead of focusing on just being a man or woman, let's focus on what we truly are. Divine, intelligent beings that are free to do what we choose within our parameters. Whether we want to do something amazing or whether we want to just, kick back and get by, that's up to you. I've talked to people before on the show that have done many past life regressions about people that have lived, multiple lives and discussed in previous lives where they were doing a lot of work. And then this life, they just want to kick back and relax and watch sports and TV shows. I get it. That's not where I'm at. Some people feel that their souls are older than others. Now, I don't know enough about time to say that there's validity in that. If a soul is timeless, if it's always been, then your perception of time is, once again, just the software and the hardware that's presenting itself to you in this current form, in my opinion. So thank you for listening. Tonight, make sure to join us, 10 p.m. Central. We're going to do a live show. I'm going to have several guests on the show, and we're going to party like it's the night before the rapture, because it is the night before the rapture, right? Well, wait. What about in London? It's already September 23rd there, isn't it? Well, not time zone Central Time. So anyway, we're going to have some fun, and we're going to share a whole bunch of ideas, multitude of guests. Going to do a round table. Might even take people that are in the live chat questions, and if they want to join us on the call, that might be an opportunity as well. So make sure to join us on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/clandestine time lord. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the link for the alerts so you'll know when I have a new podcast. I usually do about 4 a day on average, I would say. And also, just so you know, if you go to leakproject.com, I have approximately 100 or so exclusive podcasts just at leakproject.com. So there you go. That's my shameless plug. Also, check out getthetea.com. This stuff is awesome. I'm taking Formula 13 and these pills called GI Joy, which has colostrum. It's organic, probiotics, aloe, peppermint, and turmeric. And wow, this stuff is off the hook. Actually, last night when I was doing research, because I read through about a half dozen books last night, and that's why I didn't do a show yesterday, because I wanted to bring some new material to you, so I'll probably do 8 podcasts today. But anyway, so I drank some of this Formula 13 tea, and I ended up having like 3 glasses of it. I was up till almost 5 a.m. So be careful. If you drink this stuff, it's really smooth, but it'll wake you up. It'll keep you going. So, and I didn't get that jittery caffeine thing. So I can drink a lot of caffeine anyway. I usually don't get jitters from caffeine, but some people do. But it's just a real smooth, a real clean energy, in my opinion. That's my opinion. So check it out. Go to Get the Tea. And when you check out, let them know that you heard about them through Leak Project, if you would, please. And that's my second shameless plug. You'll thank me later. Be the change you want to see. It'll also explain how these texts, the author, predates. Secondly, this is where it gets really interesting. He is said by himself to be the son of Saturn, and by others to be the scribe of Saturn. I always thought it was Mercury. Now, Saturn, according to historians, lived in the time of Sarug, which is when Abraham's great-grandfather was alive. In this book, though so very old, is contained more true knowledge of God and nature than in all the books in this world, besides, except only, sacred writ. And they that shall judiciously read it and rightly understand it may well be excused from reading many books. So there you go. If you want to avoid doing a whole bunch of reading, just read these books according to the author. That's pretty cool. I always like to do the least amount possible and obtain the most results, the most effective, maximum results. The authors of which, with many books, not this one, because this is one author, the authors of which pretend so much to the knowledge of the Creator and creation, if God ever appeared in any man, he appeared in him as it appears by this book. That's also fascinating. That a man who had not the benefit of his ancestors' knowledge, being, as I said before, the first inventor of the art of communicating knowledge to posterity by writing, should be so high a divine and so deep a philosopher, seems to be a thing more of God than of man, which I absolutely agree. And therefore it was the opinion of some that he came from heaven, not born upon earth. There is contained in this book that true philosophy, without which it is impossible ever to attain to the height and exactness of piety and religion. According to this philosophy, I call him a philosopher. His name, the learning, the country, and the time. Because he was named Ter Maximus, many people believe that name was because he was a chief philosopher. Then he became the chief in the priesthood, then went to the chief of the government or king. Now, according to his most learned followers, he was called Ter Maximus for having perfect and exact knowledge of all things contained in the world. He divided these things into 3 kingdoms, the mineral, vegetable, and animal kingdoms. He also had the knowledge of the quintessence of the entire universe, which is also divided into these three parts, also called the great elixir of the philosophers, which is the receptacle of the celestial and terrestrial virtues. Ripley, Bacon, Norton have also found the description of this great treasure engraved upon a Smaragdine table, probably said that wrong, in the valley of Ebron after the flood. So, because it is received amongst the ancients that Thoth or Hermes Trismegistus was the first that invented the art of communicating knowledge to the world by writing or engraving, that is going to add to the probability that these texts were long before Moses or anything that you would read in the Bible. Now, with that said, Moses in the Bible talks about how from an early childhood he became skilled in Egyptian learning, which could not well have been without the help of literature invented by Hermes Trismegistus, which was the divine Pymander of Hermes Trismegistus, the Kundalini dragon, the son of Saturn, predating Moses. These scriptures that I'm about to share with you, or knowledge of antiquity, I feel would be a better way to reference it, could be first place for antiquity. From all of the books in the world being written long before Moses and anything in the Bible. The information presented will confirm this hypothesis. The original, as far as we know it to be, was in Arabic, then several translations thereafter, Greek, Latin, French, Dutch. Then Dr. Everard translated it into English, and it was published in 1650 in London. Now, concerning these texts, the main focus is going to be four things considered to correlate how old these texts actually are.